On SQ3 there, fine margins. We saw the yellow flags as well. How much did that impact your final run?
Yeah, it definitely didn't help, but it's not for the lack of trying. We seemed like the team thought we were a lot faster than we are. Gave it everything, and that's ultimately what matters most. It's just we just were not quick enough.
It seems like you've really been building momentum over the last few events. So how are you feeling in the car aside from that? Does it still feel like you're moving in the right direction despite what happened at the end there?
It's hard to say that when you're out in Q2, but I do feel like we're working hard. So there's not really much more I can do. It is what it is.
And looking ahead to the sprint, potential for some rain as well. You've put in some incredible drives here over the years. What's your thinking looking ahead to that?
I'm 11th now, so just have to have some fun from there. I think at this point, it's literally it's just about having fun. It's not going well from my side, my year, and I just have to just enjoy it wherever I am, and that's all I can do.
What happens when the most successful driver in Formula One history can't qualify in the top 10? Driving for Ferrari. And what does it mean that Hamilton said, "Yeah, every time, man"? Are we facing the beginning of a silent crisis in Maranello? The 2025 Brazilian Grand Prix represented a pivotal moment for Lewis Hamilton within his still recent and eventful time at Scuderia Ferrari. It was not a simple sprint classification. It was the brutal reflection of a season that, although still young, was already beginning to show worrying cracks in the structure of the most historic team in Formula One. The pressure did not fall only on the results. It was about expectations, about identity, about an urgent search for consistency that has not yet appeared. And in the midst of that context, the name of Hamilton, 7-time world champion, suddenly appeared surrounded by uncertainty. In the only free practice session of the weekend, Ferrari seemed disconnected from the rest of the grid. While McLaren and Red Bull opted for medium and soft tires to obtain representative data in conditions similar to those of qualifying, Ferrari took an opposite path. Hamilton and Leclerc ran exclusively on hard tires, without attempting a single competitive fastest lap. The consequence was immediate: a complete lack of useful references for the performance of the SF25 in the maximum demanding environment. Hamilton finished in 18th position and Leclerc in 19th. Without rhythm, without clear information, without basis to work. This left the team in a vulnerable position for sprint qualifying, especially considering that the format limits adjustments to the car once the first practice session is over. In this type of compressed weekends, any error in the initial setup can become an irreversible burden. And that was exactly what happened with Ferrari. Hamilton's frustration became palpable not only with the result, but with how that point was reached. It was not a personal mistake or poor tactical execution. It was the result of a combination of structural decisions, poor preparation, and a conservative approach that contrasted deeply with the strategic aggressiveness that defines truly leading teams. For a driver who has built his legend on control, adaptability, and technical excellence, finding himself trapped in a system that seems to stumble over the same rock every weekend is a demoralizing experience. When his engineer's message confirmed the P11, Hamilton's response was not explosive. It was a resigned whisper, a sign of psychological exhaustion rather than anger. "Yeah, every time, man." 3 words that, in that context, carried the weight of an entire project that has never quite taken off. It was an echo of past disappointments, of opportunities that slipped through the fingers. And above all, it was an indication that something much deeper is not working. This initial block of the weekend in Brazil, more than a specific anecdote, should be understood as the symptom of a larger situation. Ferrari continues to suffer from conceptual errors, structural limitations, and a tendency to make decisions that, although logical on paper, systematically fail on the asphalt. And Hamilton, accustomed to operating in environments where efficiency and innovation make the difference, begins to face a reality where frustration and improvisation seem to be the norm. The Brazilian Grand Prix sprint qualifying was not only a disappointing moment for Lewis Hamilton from a result point of view. It was, above all, an episode that revealed the fragility of Ferrari's operational structure and the way in which a single error, apparently isolated, can have devastating consequences when competing at the highest level. Charles Leclerc's spin at the Bico de Pato corner was not simply a track incident. It was the trigger for a domino effect that ended up ruining Hamilton's only competitive attempt at the most decisive moment of the session. To understand the seriousness of what happened, you must analyze the scenario precisely. There were just seconds left in SQ2. All drivers were looking to maximize their last attempt to qualify in the top 10 and advance to the final round. The margin was minimal and the traffic was dense. Lewis was on a fast lap that had to be impeccable if he wanted to secure his entry into SQ3. There was no time for mistakes. Any alteration of the rhythm would be definitive. And it was at that moment, right in front of him on the track, when his teammate lost control of the SF25. Leclerc made a driving error at a particularly technical point on the track. By attacking the apex of the Bico de Pato curve too aggressively, he lost the rear of the car, spun violently and ended up doing a 360-degree spin that left his car momentarily crossed on the track. Immediately, the race direction displayed double yellow flags in that sector, forcing all drivers to drastically reduce speed and abort any attempt at a fast lap. Bad luck meant that Hamilton came right behind Leclerc. The opportunity to set a competitive time disappeared in milliseconds. But beyond the technical aspect of the incident, what is important is how this situation impacted Hamilton emotionally and strategically. It wasn't just about being forced to take your foot off the accelerator. It was knowing that once again his classification was compromised by an external element, and this time it was not even the responsibility of another rival team, but of his own teammate. In any other context, the incident could have been handled with more margin. But in a sprint format where opportunities are so limited, the damage was irreparable. And what made the situation worse was that, despite the mistake, Leclerc did manage to qualify for SQ3. Although his spin occurred on his flying lap, his previous time was enough to keep him in the top 10. Hamilton, on the other hand, was stuck out by a matter of seconds, with his attempt neutralized just as the timer reached 0. That asymmetry in results within the same team, caused by a single event, ignited a new spark of internal frustration. Furthermore, the fact that Ferrari did not take preventive measures such as better coordinating the starting order or prioritizing the attempt of the driver with the highest risk of elimination reveals a lack of tactical coordination that remains a recurring problem at the Maranello wall. Because beyond the accident itself, there are questions that the team should ask itself. Was it necessary for Leclerc to push so hard on that lap? Could the traffic risk have been anticipated? Why didn't they protect Hamilton's return better? The truth is that, at the end of that session, the team finished with one car in 8th position and the other eliminated in 11th. But the difference wasn't in pure performance. It was down to chance, poor planning, and how a small mistake unleashed strategic chaos that ended up paying for one of the greatest pilots in history. And that, in a structure that aspires to win championships, cannot continue to happen. Once the sprint qualifying for the Brazilian Grand Prix was over, when the dust seemed to settle after Lewis Hamilton's frustrating P11, the situation took an unexpected and dangerous turn for the British driver. Beyond the sporting disappointment of not having entered SQ3, a new threat loomed over him and Ferrari: a formal investigation by the FIA for a possible infraction under a double yellow flag. An infraction that, if confirmed, could have meant not only a penalty on the grid, but a lethal blow to the morale of a driver already emotionally affected by the team's poor performance. It all started when the stewards detected that, at the time of Leclerc's spin, Hamilton did not appear to reduce his speed sufficiently in the affected sector, as required by regulations. In double yellow flag conditions, drivers are required to significantly lift their foot off the accelerator and be prepared to stop if necessary. It is a strict safety rule that does not allow for loose interpretations. And precisely for this reason, when the track sensors indicated that Hamilton had set his personal best time in one of the affected mini-sectors, the alert was immediately triggered. Data review began almost immediately. Race officials requested both onboard recordings from the Ferrari SF25 and telemetry data from Hamilton. They also analyzed the exact duration of the double yellow flag phase, the signals emitted by the car's electronic systems, and the driver's line of sight at the time of the incident. Each variable counted, because it was not simply a matter of measuring a particular speed, but rather contextualizing the car's behavior in relation to the danger that Leclerc's spun Ferrari represented on the track. And this is where the case of Brazil became especially complex. According to the data reviewed, Hamilton effectively aborted his fastest lap after passing the affected sector, complying with the spirit of the regulations. However, at the same moment that he crossed where Leclerc had spun, the records indicated that his car was setting a competitive pace, even improving compared to his previous lap. Sky Sports commentators, particularly David Croft and Martin Brundle, stressed live that it sounded like he accelerated just past Leclerc. This perception ignited debate over whether Lewis had prioritized trying to save the lap, rather than reacting appropriately to the incident. Ferrari, for its part, presented a well-articulated technical defense. They argued that the yellow flags lasted only a few seconds and that at the exact moment Hamilton passed the spot of the spin, Leclerc was already rejoining the track, without posing a physical obstacle. Furthermore, they pointed out that their pilot did not complete the lap, which shows that there was no real intention to ignore the safety conditions, but rather a desperate attempt to cross the finish line before the end of the stopwatch, without putting anyone at risk. The commissioners, faced with a dilemma between applying the regulations rigidly or assessing the specific circumstances of the case, chose not to sanction. They considered Hamilton's reaction to be reasonable given the conditions. His speed reduction, although not extreme, was sufficient considering that he aborted his turn and did not endanger any other pilot. This decision, however, did not satisfy everyone. Some analysts and former pilots noted that this leniency could set a dangerous precedent, and that the criteria applied were too soft compared to previous sanctions. What has become clear is that the FIA is at a crossroads regarding how to handle these incidents. Although the rules are written, interpretations still depend on context, team pressure, visibility from the car, and factors that cannot always be measured with hard data. In this case, the outcome was favorable for Hamilton, but the fragility of that defense shows how easily everything could have changed. And beyond the penalty avoided, what this episode made evident is Ferrari's vulnerability to extreme scenarios. The fact that one of its drivers spins out that puts the other in check, that he is then on the verge of a sanction, and that everything depends on a millimeter review of data to avoid a major disaster, shows that something in the operational and strategic dynamics of the team is still not under control. We want to know your opinion. Do you think Hamilton made a mistake by joining Ferrari, or is this just a complicated phase in a process that will end up paying off? Do you see the patience necessary to endure another season of slow construction? And what role do you think Ferrari should play in all this? Leave me your opinion on all this.